Thanks for listening to FYI Stillwater, where you will hear information about your local government you didn't know you need to know, straight from the source. Be sure to check out other news and information from the City of Stillwater at stillwater.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter. Hi, I'm your host, Sherry Fletcher, Director of Marketing and Civic Engagement. Today, my co-host is Communications Coordinator Megan Pardue. Hey, Megan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Sherry?
Good, good. So you're still working on the memes, right?
Yes, I am. I'm slowly trying to get them out.
Are you the memes queen?
Yes, I am. I pride myself on that.
So if anybody sees the City of Stillwater's Facebook pages, Twitter, and you like a meme, you can thank Megan.
Yeah, you know I'm the mastermind behind it.
She is. And sometimes they're very witty, I think.
I try.
So who's our guest today?
All right, so today's guest is Captain Stevens from the police department. So to start this off, I'm going to start with some basic facts about the Stillwater Police Department. Their mission is basically to protect life, liberty, and property and preserve the peace of the city of Stillwater by aggressively pursuing all criminals and vigorously seeking their prosecution, working in partnership with the community and educating citizens in prevention, and patrolling all city streets in a highly visible manner to deter criminal activity. That was a mouthful. Okay, so that's just a few of the things that the police department does.
Because there's quite a few more on their mission statement.
Yes.
Yeah. So today we are going to talk with Royce. He's spearheading a joint mental health crisis center, and I think he's going to give us some background on a new officer.
Correct.
Yeah. So you can't see my air quotes, but I did put the new officer in air quotes. So welcome, Royce.
Thank you.
Have you listened to our podcast?
I'm going to be honest and say no. I haven't had a chance to
God.
listen to a podcast yet.
I can't believe we haven't had
I was
one.
chastised
Shoot,
by Tommy
we-
when I came in, so
I don't even know why you're in here then.
Sorry.
All right. We'll give you a pass. So you may not realize this. Today we're going to start with a lightning round and ask you some random but revealing questions. Are you ready?
I guess.
He
All right.
guesses.
I
Yeah.
get to ask them.
All right. You go,
I'm the
Megan.
torturer. All right, so what fictional world or place would you like to visit?
It's an easy one. Mayberry, North Carolina.
Oh, my goodness.
Such an oddly specific place.
I am a huge Andy Griffith show fan.
Are you? Do you
My
watch all the
favorite show.
reruns?
I've got the complete set
You watch-
on DVD and constantly watch
Do
it.
you?
Yes.
So you've got it all memorized?
Absolutely.
Because I know if I watched one, I would remember the whole show and all the jokes. Now, I'm not like a huge fan, but I could go spend some time in Mayberry.
Yeah, I wish that was a real place. It's based on Andy Griffith's hometown that he grew up in, Mount Airy, North Carolina.
So the jail would be like your ideal jail?
That was what
Everybody-
I wanted to be growing up, was Andy Griffith. That'd be
Oh,
great.
they have the
Turns out
keys.
I'm more Barney, but I
You're
would
more
love to
Barney.
be Andy
You
Griffith.
got your bullet in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the keys would hang so that Otis
Otis
could
could
reach
just
out
listen.
there and get it
Exactly.
the town drunk. I can see that Megan has never seen the show. I
Yes,
can
I'm
see
obviously one of the younger
She
people
didn't
in
even
the
know
room
what
here.
Mayberry was.
Well, I vaguely remember that show being on growing up. My older sister would watch it, but I haven't seen enough of it to know the location. So that did not ring a bell for
it
me.
did not.
You're
I can
dead to
see
me, Megan.
she was a little dumbfounded. She's like,
I thought that is like a really specific town. Whenever you're talking about any fictional place ever you could visit.
you was thinking like Lord of the Rings or
Yes, some
Twilight.
Wonderland.
I could see you as a Twilight fan. Tommy's working that over in her mind over in the corner.
Team Edward or Team Jacob? Team Edward or Team Jacob is what Tommy just said.
And we didn't get an answer. That was a random but revealing question. Team Edward or Team Jacob?
I have no
You
idea.
gotta pick one.
He doesn't know this fictional world either.
If it wasn't made before probably like 1987, I have no idea.
All right.
I just tuned out of society in 1987. So
Well, let it be known that Captain Stevens cannot choose Team Edward or Team Jacob.
We'll choose for him.
It's career ending right there. Anyway, let's move on. What's one career you wish you could have?
So I am a huge classic car fan as well. I've owned, 30, 40 classic cars in my life probably. And I would love to own a classic car dealership.
So what do you own right now?
Right now, my two classic cars are I got on it several years ago. I got on an International Harvester kick. You probably don't know what that is either, do you?
Not at all.
So International Harvester is known for making tractors and whatnot, but from 1907 to 1980, they also made passenger vehicles. They made the first crew cab pickup. They made the first production four-wheel drive vehicle, actually, that factory-produced four-wheel drive vehicle for the public to buy. They made a lot of things. So international scouts and things like that. I've owned 22 internationals in my life.
Wow.
And currently I have a 1974 International pickup that is all original. It came from Perry, Oklahoma. It was sold there originally. Been here its whole life, completely original. And I have a 1971 Scout 800 that
So
I'm
do you
restoring.
drive them, or do
Sure.
you just put them on a bed and take them to show?
No, I drive them. I I had a very nice show truck, 67 crew cab pickup that I took to shows for several years that I restored. And, I drove it I put about 5,000 miles a year on that truck.
Oh, all right. So what's the dream car? The elusive one that if you got it, you would be fulfilled.
Oh, there's not one of those.
There's not.
No, I would love to have a 62 Vet probably. The very first marked police car for the city of Stillwater was a 1939 Ford Standard sedan, which is a one-year-only body style. If you go to the front lobby of the PD, you see a black and white photo of a black and white old sedan.
Right.
Says Stillwater Police on the door. They actually bought that car, and it was all black, and it just said police on the hood. In 1941, they got their first radio, car to base station radio, and that was the first time they had uniforms as well. There's a great story of how Stillwater PD got their first uniforms. But in conjunction with that, they had enough money left over from their fundraising to paint the doors of that car white and paint the badge on, or paint Stillwater Police on the door. And I would love to recreate that car.
That would be so cool.
Those
That would have
cars
to
are
be
neat.
like the car mascot of the police department if you did that.
I've
and
been
it-
searching for a good candidate for that vehicle for about 2 years now, and have failed to find
It's a little
one yet.
elusive.
It is. It's a one-year-only car, and it was the standard. They made a deluxe version. People saved the deluxe versions because they were much nicer. You see lots of those, but the front end of those are completely different. They look different. It won't work, so it's very hard to find one of those.
Awesome. Well, you'll have to keep us up to date on this.
I will.
And we're going to come back and you're going to bring that story back too.
All right.
So, but today, let's go ahead and start our regular interview with you. First of all, I would like to know your career path. How did you end up captain of operations? What got you here?
Well, so like I said, I grew up wanting to be Andy Griffith. I always wanted to be a police officer, And I was 20 years old in Dallas when, living in Dallas, Texas, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And I was also a patriot. And I said, I'm joining the Army. And I thought you joined the Army and they told you what you were going to do, But I went and took a test and they said, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a cop. And they said, okay, well, we've got those in the Army too. So I became a military police officer.
Okay.
And if you know the history of the Gulf War, it was over in like 6 minutes. So, I was on orders to go to Kuwait when I joined, but the war was over before I could get out of training. And so they sent me to South Korea, and I was on bar patrol. Basically, in South Korea, where I was stationed, they had a bar district, kind of like Washington Street.
Right.
Here. And so I did some horrible physical security jobs, and then, but I would go out 2 days a week and patrol the bars down there like a street cop, And then from there, I went to White Sands Missile Range. I worked in a traffic unit, and then was lucky enough to be selected to be a federal game warden there at White Sands. And in doing that, I was also a sniper. And I got deployed several times as a sniper with Joint Task Force 6, which ran drug interdiction for basically the southwest part of the nation. And got very interested in drug interdiction and knew that I wanted to be a civilian police officer somewhere. And so in 1996, after 5 years in active duty, I finished my term of service and I got out. And through various family situations, I knew I was going to move to Oklahoma. And I studied the area and decided that Stillwater PD was the PD to come to work for in this part of the state, and actually anywhere in this state. And so I moved here. They weren't hiring. OSU PD and opened up their hiring process shortly after Stillwater opened theirs as well. I applied for both. OSU PD called me and offered me a job, and so I took it. I went to work there. And it was a good learning experience. Back then, '96, when you went to work there, Everett Eaton was the chief at. I'm sure you remember Everett. He was the chief there, and it was back then it was a stepping stone department. Not so much anymore. People
Right.
make careers out of OSU PD now, but it was a stepping stone department. And Chief Eaton asked for a 2-year commitment when you went there. Shake his hand, say, "I'll work for you for 2 years." And on my second anniversary, I came to Stillwater and got an application.
Oh, yeah?
And applied. Took about 6 months for the process to finish out, and I came to work here in May of 1999. 18 months later, I knew when I came to work here, every officer we interview, we're going through, hiring process right now. Every time we interview people, we always ask something like, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years if you get this job?" And everybody always says, "I'm going to be a detective, I'm going to be on the SWAT team, or I'm going to be a canine handler."
Right.
Well, I'm going to be a canine handler is what I said. And 18 months later, just through some weird circumstance, I found myself in a position to be able to apply for it, and was selected as a canine handler, and loved it. That was just an incredible job. I enjoyed it. I did that for almost 14 years here.
It seems amazing, and we actually had the canines on our podcast on a
We
previous
did.
episode.
And they were very quiet. They didn't make a sound. It's like, no, I thought they were going to kind of like, you could hear them and know they was in the room, but man, they were quiet. It's kind of like they were. They knew what was going on. They were attentive, but they didn't make a sound. I was like, make them make a sound.
They're incredibly well-trained dogs. They
Yeah.
really are. And it was a lot of fun. I did that for a long time, worked a lot of drug interdiction doing that. That was my main duty. That's the main duty of our canines here. Worked that for a while. Retired Captain Dickerson. You remember Randy Dickerson well.
Yes.
And he told me one day, he said, "It is time for you to promote." And I didn't want to. I wanted to keep my dog.
You liked your dogs?
I did. I loved it. I said, "I'm going to keep my dog till they wheel me out of here." But he convinced me that it was time for me to promote, and so I did. I was promoted to sergeant in 2014, and I was the head of the Special Projects Unit.
Right.
And so I did that for, 3 years or so, and I was promoted to lieutenant and went back to patrol and worked patrol for about 18 months and expected to do that for quite a while, but Chief McCarron decided to leave early and just several changes in personnel, and found myself promoted to captain
I know.
about a year and a half ago. Way ahead of schedule.
Right.
And so I've been doing that for about a year and a half, and so I was placed in the operations position. If you don't know, there's the chief and the assistant chief, and then there are 2 captains. The police department's basically split in half. The operations side, which is what I do, and staff services. Captain Kyle Gibbs is staff services, and that under him is the dispatch, the jail, the records, the majority of the non-sworn employees that we have. And then in the operations side, my side is the criminal investigations division, the detectives, the school resource officers, and the patrol division.
Right. So you were quite busy.
Yes, we're all quite busy.
Quite
yes.
busy, yes. But you also had mentioned to me that you're spearheading a mental health crisis center.
Well, not a center, but
All right.
yeah, a unit. So the mental health has always been an issue for law enforcement in dealing with mental health. Years ago.
Because you guys are the ones that take care of the people who are having meltdowns, or they're living under a bridge, or, you're the first point of contact for a lot of these people.
Exactly. So, years ago, they had, what you would call a mental institution, a mental hospital and things, and they've done away with those throughout the country through a series of lawsuits and litigation that have gone on, and gone to more community-based mental health, which is what we have here, and it's a good, seems to be an effective system for the mental health, but it does put law enforcement in contact with people in crisis quite often, and it takes very specialized training to effectively deal with people in crisis, and more training to be truly effective at it than the average police officer is going to get in his career. there's people that go to school for 7 years. They're called doctors, to deal with
Right.
people in crisis and deal with people with mental health. But for a crisis situation, it would be great to have some really specialized officers that could go out and do that. And there are several departments, larger departments across the nation that have gone to this type of model or are going to it. Probably the most well-known is San Antonio, Texas. HBO actually did a documentary on it a couple of years ago. And but basically what it does is it takes police officers and it gives them very specialized training on crisis intervention. And that is their duty, is responding to people in crisis. I say that and people go, well, really, do you have enough of that to keep people busy?
Right, like what would be an example?
So in Oklahoma, we have what's called emergency detention. So if someone is going to harm themselves or saying,
Right.
I'm going to harm someone else, they can't care for themselves because of some type of mental illness, usually is what we're seeing there. We respond to those, and our recourse is to, the way it works in Oklahoma is an officer would go, they believe that someone is going to harm themselves, and they will take them into protective custody. The state of Oklahoma has kind of a gatekeeper system. For years and years here, it was Edwin Fair Mental Health. About a year ago, Grand Lakes Mental Health took over that contract. And we have had a great relationship with them, and their way of doing business has vastly improved our ability to serve our community, in my opinion. And the way that they interface with the patients has really been beneficial to us. They opened a crisis center here in town, which also helps us because for years we would take someone to the hospital, doctor would check them out, make sure there wasn't some physical reason for what was going on with them. A lot of times there was, maybe drug or alcohol involvement. They might have to detox there or something like that. But then a mental health worker would evaluate them and decide whether or not they needed to be taken for some inpatient care or something like that. And so Grand Lakes actually has a system where they have distributed an iPad to every single police officer. And it has one button on it, and you find someone who is in crisis, you hand them that iPad, they turn it on, and there's a real-time counselor that comes on and talks to them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Figures
That
out
is
what's
the
going on.
future right there.
Yes, and they figure out what's going on, and then that officer takes them. But still, it ties up a police officer for a significant amount of time. I've got a few stats because I've been looking at this recently. So, just kind of give you kind of a frame of reference. In 1999, when I started here, that year we had 61 emergency detentions where we actually had to take someone in custody. That has steadily increased, and now we run about 265 a year. People that we have to take into protective custody to get them emergency mental health treatment. We're on track this year to be our highest year ever. And I would not be surprised to see us break or come very close to 300 before the end of the
Do you
year.
think the pandemic is obviously driving that?
Well, our numbers were higher even before the pandemic
Really?
really got going. Yeah, they started out high
They
this
started
year.
out high.
January, we average, over the past 5 years, we'd been averaging 20 emergency detentions for the month of January for the past 5 years. This year, we had 33 in
Wow.
January alone. So every month, with the exception of April this year, we have been higher than our previous years. And so I think we're on track to have our highest year ever. So I say all that to say it takes a lot of time. And usually it takes 2 officers to deal with someone like that. And you have to transport them. If they're non-compliant, they can't go to the Stillwater facility, and we have to transport them to Pryor. So you can imagine contacting someone, having them evaluated, driving to Pryor, Oklahoma, and driving back. We've lost 2 officers for 8 hours
Right.
doing that. And so the thought process is that we would have a multi-agency crisis intervention team. We've we've been talking to Payne County. I have a meeting set up with the incoming sheriff, Joe Harper, to talk to him about this, to bring him up to speed on what we've been talking about, and Chief Jones from OSU PD. And they are on board with supplying manpower for this. And our hope is that eventually we would have a four-man team, probably 2 Stillwater officers eventually. We're very low on manpower ourselves right now. But hopefully 2 Stillwater officers, an OSU officer, and a Payne County officer, or deputy, I'm sorry, that would respond, that would be their duty, to respond to people in mental health crisis throughout Payne County. And in doing that, it's not just the initial response and freeing up officers to handle the regular street duties. It also, these are people who are trained. They'll be trained to specifically deal with people in crisis, to have extra de-escalation techniques, and to be able to talk to people. They'll be dressed in civilian clothes and driving unmarked vehicles, and being officers who can sit down in a non-confrontational manner and talk to people that are in crisis and help
That sounds
them
like
out.
something that would be very well received and very effective.
Oh, I think, and in the places where they've done it, it has been very effective. And not only that, not only do they respond that way, but then they are the people who know all the resources. I would love to have a veteran on that team, because a large number of our people in mental health crisis are veterans. And someone who not only can relate to them, but know how to hook them up with the right resources through the VA and things like that. And then have the time to go back and follow up with these people and make sure that they're going to their appointments, make sure they're getting the help that they need.
I can see a lot of value in that, because you're building a relationship, because they tend to be in the community, and it's a continuous
Absolutely, it's just like anything else. We have, there's a high risk, repeat customers there in that, and so if you have someone who follows up with them, I think that would drop off.
I think so too.
Yeah, they would.
You
They
could
wouldn't
come
get
to
in
know and
crisis.
trust that this specific person is going to help you.
That's right.
It
You're
sounds like
building a
real game
relationship with
changer.
them, and they're checking in with them and making sure that they're going and getting the help they need. And I think it'll stop future crisis for those folks.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is awesome. We'll have to talk to you a little bit more about this in the future.
And by the way, I want to give credit. Vice Mayor Darlington actually brought that the documentary that I was talking about to Chief Watts and said, "This is really interesting. I'd like you to watch." And Chief Watts got really excited about it, really on board with it.
Because mental health is her focus. So
Sure.
Counselor Darlington is also a mental health professional here in town, long career, and she has mentioned lots. I think she was instrumental in bringing Grand Lake here as well. So just she's really in tune to the needs of the community as well. So
Well,
hats off to Counselor Darlington.
I really hope we can pull this off. I hope. Right now we're in a hiring process. I've been here for at Stillwater PD for 21 years. I don't know that we've ever been fully staffed, and it.
Oh, really?
And it takes a long time to hire and vet people to be officers, and we have it's one of the top few longest training programs in the state for a police department. If we hire someone who's uncertified, never been a police officer, it takes right at a year to get that person out on the road as a police officer. So when we have vacancies, it's a long time to hire,
Yeah.
a long
And
time to
Very
get them out.
selective.
And we get people to apply. I mean, it's not like nobody's applying. So it is a strenuous selection process
Well,
to even get them there.
I'll tell you this, the last hiring process, I believe we had 136 applicants. We had 5 positions to fill. We only filled 4.
Wow.
We couldn't even find
Wow.
a 5th applicant that
That
we
is
wanted to
amazing.
accept.
So people can be rest assured that the police officers are screened and vetted and trained.
Not just
Absolutely.
anyone is out
Yeah.
on the street.
Absolutely. Now, I alluded to earlier that where you have a new officer, again, you don't see my air quotes. So what am I talking about, Royce?
Well, Investigator Elliott is one of our canine handlers, and his current dog is Pito. Actually, Pito's very dear to me because he was my last patrol dog. I went and selected Pito in July of 2012, and he was my dog until I left the canine program, or the canine position. And Detective Elliott was chosen as the handler, and he took over Pito, and he has had him since. Well, Pito has been our longest-serving police canine in the history of our program, and so he's right now 9.5 years old. We've had him just over 8 years, and he deserves to retire. So that's
So
what we're
what
doing.
happens? So what's their retirement program? What do they get? What's their perks?
So-
where do they go?
So what happens is the handler, when a dog is retiring from service, the handler, of course, the handler always wants to keep their dog
Right.
because they're part of the family, and so now they're owned by the city, and they're expensive. Those dogs cost between, depending on what type of training dogs have, they cost between $8,000 and $15,000. But
they're so
they do
cute.
belong to the city.
I always see like service dogs or police dogs on the street, and I just want to pet them so bad, but I know that they're a working professional, and I cannot pet them.
Well, the protocol there is ask the handler, can I pet him? And they will tell you yes or
And
no.
she'd
You
just be
shouldn't have told me
wallering.
that.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
will ask every person
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Now, if it's a true, like a service dog, like a personal service dog, usually, almost always, they will say, no, you can't pet my dog while they're working. And there's good
makes
reasons.
sense, yeah.
Yeah, I understand. There's good reasons for that. Now, police dogs, though, we are very selective in our dogs, and we make sure we get strong social police dogs. And so all our police dogs have always been able to, we can take them in the middle of a kindergarten class and have them lay on the floor and kids pile on them and pet them and pull their ears.
That's what Megan wants. She wants a police dog in the office.
That's my dream right there.
Yeah.
Just please bring one in and let him lay on the floor next to me, and
All
I
right.
will cuddle all over him.
Well, back to your question, though. So what happens is, since they do belong to the city, they can't give those things away.
Uh-huh.
They're considered a piece of equipment. And so the city manager sells the dog to the handler. They cost a whole $1, and usually Norm McNichol gives you $1 before you have to pay him $1. So,
That is awesome. I had not heard that story before, but I may offer $2 because
I think Investigator Elliott would fight you pretty good to keep Pito.
because they are just adorable. They
You
really
may or
are.
may not see my application.
Yeah.
It might be coming through the police department.
Yeah, because Megan wants to be a handler too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good time. So
Yeah.
we have selected a new dog, and he was put out on our Facebook page last week. His name is Rotex. I don't know what they're going to call him. I wouldn't call my dog Rotex. It'd probably be Ro or Tex or
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know.
Text would work really well.
But I've seen some video of him, and I am very excited to see this dog finish his training out here. He's going to be a great dog. He's a pretty good sized dog. We go to usually the majority of our dogs have come from a place called Von Lick Kennels in Denver, Indiana, and it's owned and run by probably he's basically the inventor of modern U.S. Police K-9 methodology. His name's Ken Licklider, and it is just an incredible facility, and you go up there and they've got 150 dogs sitting there for you to choose from. And so Investigator Elliott's going through a new handler class up there. He's been a handler for several years, but we had the opportunity to send him to another handler class. Can't have too much training. And it's kind of a package deal buying the dog there.
Right.
And we hadn't planned to do it till this spring, but one good thing from COVID has been that just like our city, we stopped all spending on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But so did other cities, and so they had a backlog of dogs, and so they actually put them on sale. And so a half-price sale for a police dog.
Oh my goodness, things you don't expect, right?
Exactly. And we had, if you'll remember back when Xena, one of our police dogs, unexpectedly passed away a few
Right,
years
yeah.
ago, we did a community fundraiser. Our goal was to raise about $20,000. We raised about $38,000.
Yeah, community
And-
responded.
Yeah, incredibly well. And so we had that money in an account for our dogs. And this opportunity came up, and that's what it was given for, was to
Right.
replace a canine. And so city council approved us to go ahead and buy the dog now.
Yeah, because it does make a lot of sense. It's good use of taxpayer dollars. Watch those. Well, these were donated dollars, but still, just good stewards of the money. And now we have a new dog. We gotta go meet it.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
wait, is Investigator Elliott about to have 2 police dogs in his home?
He will.
Oh my God, I need to join this.
He will.
That's my dream.
It's really great because we get up there and I've been a master trainer, me and Detective Comstock, who's now a retired police officer. We went up to Vaughn Lake and went through a master trainer course, and we got to train the dogs. And you see how they work and how they're brought from overseas and imprinted training. And you know that just like anywhere else, there's really great ones, and it's a sliding scale down, And so you go there, and I don't know how many people were in the handler class this time, but let's say there's 25 of them. How do you pick the dogs? They all show up on the same day for dog selection. Well, they do a kind of a lottery system up there, and we were lucky enough to be the third picked for the lottery. The first two people that were picking had specific things that they needed based on their department needs, and their needs did not require them to pick the best dog, and so they didn't.
Wow.
Every trainer there knew that Rotex was the best dog in the kennel, and Detective Elliott was the third pick and got to take the dog.
That is awesome.
So we really lucked out. He's got a great dog coming back home.
I'm
So
sure the police
when you
department
was
will
a
benefit from
handler,
this.
did you allow your dog in your classic cars?
Yeah, actually I did. Because they live with you, they go home with
Yeah.
you, and I would take. I had three dogs. I had Pito was my last one. My middle dog was Bear, and my first dog was Mako. And Mako was a big lap dog and loved everyone. And if I went somewhere, he wanted to go, and so he routinely rode in my cars with me.
Road shotgun.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and being our guest today. If we want to get an update on the mental health crisis unit, will you come back and talk to us?
Absolutely. I'd be really
And
excited to.
you seem to have a great history of the police department. Is that something you could come back and tell us some of these things and maybe go into that car a little bit more?
I would love to do
You would?
that. Yeah.
All right.
Retired Captain Kurt Middlestadt.
Uh-huh.
He was kind of the department historian.
Yes, he was.
Our historical display that we have out front of the police department, if you haven't seen that, it's pretty neat. You ought to go by and look at it. But he set that up. He was instrumental in getting that set up and collecting all that. And I learned a lot from talking to him, and just the archives upstairs that we have, things that I've been able to go through and see.
Because you
really
want to go back
interesting.
to Mayberry.
I do, absolutely.
That's kind of you're recreating Mayberry.
I would
in
love
the
to have
lobby.
that. Yeah, I would love to have that 39 Ford and one of our original 1941 Ike jacket uniforms and take that in parades for us and stuff. It'd be awesome.
All right. Well, we're going to bring you back and we're going to talk history and all the other activities you got. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet. Thank you.
Let's move to the mailbox. The city of Stillwater gets questions from a lot of different sources, social media, phone calls, emails. So today's question comes from Twitter, and the Ginger Greg man asks, how do I report or find out on power outages? We get this question quite a bit, so it probably doesn't hurt to give the answer one more time.
Yes, so the city actually has an online tracking tool, and it's really cool because all you got to do is go online to our website, click on the link to it, which is on our homepage at stillwater.org, and then you can type in your address or your account number with utility and billing, and track your outage. You can report your own outage, look and see if there's anyone else around you, and then you can also track it to completion. And you can see if trucks have been assigned, if they're coming out to help you,
Yeah,
and
really,
when power
it
is
is
restored.
a lot of information that people are seeking. So, that is the best way to find out about a power outage.
Yes, and then also if you don't have access to the internet at the time because of the power outage or anything, we also have a 24-hour assistance hotline as well. So be sure to go check that out at stillwater.org and keep that in mind next time your power goes out.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Megan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to FYI Stillwater. If you like this episode, help us out and give us a like or share us with your friends.
Stay tuned for our next podcast.
If you have a question for City Hall, email news@stillwater.org, and in the next podcast, we'll answer a few of them. FYI Stillwater is available on our website at stillwater.org, Spotify, and just about anywhere else you enjoy your podcast.